Welcome to the Sourcing Hero podcast, produced by Una, a group purchasing organization that empowers sourcing heroes, and Art of Procurement, the world's largest procurement podcast network. I'm your host, Kelly Barnard. The goal of the Sourcing Hero podcast is to capture the epic stories of people who are rising up and beating the odds to create exceptional value within procurement, directly from those heroes themselves. Today, my guest here on the Sourcing Hero podcast is Clay Kopp. Clay is an account executive at Una, the group purchasing organization that provides the Sourcing Hero with its home. This conversation will be part of a new ongoing series where we actually get an opportunity to meet all the different members of the Una team. And Clay's lucky he's getting to go first. So Clay's background is in the fast-paced world of transportation and logistics sales. And now he sits on the front lines of inbound and outbound GPO conversations. So Clay, welcome to the Sourcing Hero podcast.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm happy to be here. How are you today?
I am doing just fine. You're very brave. Good for you for going first. You'll have to put in a good word for me with the others.
I can do that.
I shared a little bit, just at a high level, about your background in my intro. But what else do you think it's interesting for people to know about your professional journey to this point?
I think what's led me up to Una, being in inside sales seats coming here, it was a very fast-paced sales environment with almost daily transactions, almost hourly transactions to a point, and then coming to Una in the procurement space, really looking at it from a macro view and understanding the sales process is a lot longer in some situations, but it's really going to last. We're making a plan for these members to last years and years, not a real quick solution necessarily. So it's worth the wait.
You know, the interesting thing, and whether it's going to work for a GPO or whether it's just moving into procurement generally, it was almost no one's plan. In fact, we ask people this question a lot, like, did you find procurement or did procurement find you? It means everybody has this learning curve. What was the learning curve like for you joining Una? And whether that's learning about corporate procurement and buying, or whether it's being part of a GPO, what were some of the things that you had to learn early on?
It was definitely a learning curve, and I would say procurement found me. I was actually lucky enough to find Una through a local headhunter, and after my first couple of interviews, I knew that the team and their mission and their goals and values and all that aligned, and I was ready to go all in on it. I mentioned in my first couple of weeks at Una, I had never even heard the word procurement before joining, so learning a lot, still learning a lot every day, but it was very, I would say, interesting and good for me to kind of step into a new world and learn everything from the ground up, from the very basics to getting into some more complex situations, just learning on the go. It's been very good for my development here.
Absolutely. Well, welcome to the team. First of all, I think everybody in procurement has some story where their first day on the job, they were either Googling procurement or Googling strategic sourcing to figure out, like, what is it that these people do all day long? When we think about your current daily focus, daily routine, are there specific categories of spend or supplier relationships that you spend most of your time on, or are you just sort of working broadly across the business?
I would say both and very broadly across the business. This year, I'm working more with developing new relationships with maybe suppliers we haven't worked with too much in the past. But in my previous full year, I would say the three big buckets are the contracts would be our Office Depot contract, our FedEx contract, and then our US Foods and Cisco contracts as well for that side of the business.
Yeah. Now, is it interesting, given your background, to get to work on something like the FedEx contract?
It is. You see a lot of parallels of just working in with a logistics brokerage in the past to now working with FedEx and kind of coming in knowing a lot of that jargon, if you will. And some people are like, oh, what's that mean? I'm like, oh, I could help you out with that. And I'm like, oh, I've seen it before.
Yeah. Now, that's sort of on the supplier contract side. But when we think about the buy side members in Una's GPO, I'm sure you're having conversations where they may have worked with a GPO in the past, they may have not. But how do you explain to them either broadly the GPO concept or Una's own particular take and approach to meeting that need, just in terms of practical day-to-day, how it's going to work for them and their team?
Yeah, so it's like you said, it's different for each member. We try to get an understanding early on if they have worked with a GPO or if not, so we can explain it as in depth as we need to. I would say very broad day to day. Being a member of UNA is accessing bulk buying power. It's like anyone could be a member of, Costco or Sam's Club. So
Hmm.
you have the option to buy in bulk at a cheaper price versus a small business and don't have the buying power necessarily, then you wouldn't have access to those discounts. But leveraging our GPO and billions of dollars of spend going through our
Yeah.
contracts, that will give even the smallest of businesses who just have or maybe starting out, they will get access to those prices right away.
Now, when you and I met last to sort of prepare for this, you said that the number one question you hear is, what's the catch? And I think that's very typical of the procurement mentality. We all sort of were raised on the idea that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything has a cost to it. How do you typically walk people through UNA's model so that you're not just necessarily answering where's the catch, but you're actually explaining the model itself and why there's not necessarily an added cost for them to be a part of it?
Yeah, so from the surface level, it does seem like something's going on there, but once explained, it's pretty easy to understand. So Una is actually not set up to take any transactions. You will never have to fill out a credit app, never have anything monetarily transact between us. With all the volume we put through our suppliers, we receive a very humble percentage at the end of the year based off that volume directly from the supplier. So we have thousands of members putting volume through contracts every day. It's the volume play. It's just our business model. It's worked
Mm.
for the last 15 years, and I don't see it changing anytime soon.
And yet, I'm sure you're having these conversations with organizations in different industries, different sizes, even potentially different maturity levels.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's either easier to make the case based on somebody's maturity, or is it easier to make the case maybe in a smaller, leaner team where they can use a little bit of help? How do your conversations with different procurement teams end up differing?
It certainly varies. I would say the smaller teams are kind of easier to where we can kind of consult and say, this is what we think would work. We've seen it work in the past, and they only have one or two maybe decision makers that can execute upon that, and then we can kind of keep that rolling. Some of the larger companies, if we have to get legal involved with any contracts or anything, that could take a little longer, but nonetheless, we can still absolutely see that through and work with them at their own pace.
Are there any sort of commonly held misconceptions? I almost think about like urban myth and legend with this, but obstacles that people might put up and say, no, that won't work for us because are there common examples of that you have to maybe help people either see past or think differently about in these conversations?
One instance I see sometimes is that people think that joining a GPO would kind of separate their procurement team almost,
Mm.
and that we would be kind of handling everything for them, which just it isn't the case. We are here to connect you to the suppliers, get you access to the buying power, and then once you're up and rolling, you'll be in contact with our own member experience team who will help then further build your relationships and see if there's any other suppliers that may work for you or any additional savings opportunities. But we by no means will be a middleman in your day-to-day purchasing. That would just kind of bottleneck everything up, and that's not something we're interested in doing.
Yeah. Now you mentioned relationships there. I'm interested in what you think a good supplier relationship looks like, let's say between you and your other team members and the different supplier participants in the GPO. What is a good supplier relationship, and how might members on the buy side end up benefiting from that good or positive dynamic?
Yeah, so my team members and I are in contact with various suppliers almost, I wouldn't say every day, but frequently each week, just discussing about how we can work together, bring on new business, how we will work with strategic accounts we have right now. And I think that when we have or the UNA team has good relationships with our suppliers, that makes the introduction to our new members very seamless, very easy. Everyone is on the same page. And then that starts with the implementation process. And then all the way up to when they're ready to order, we kind of send them off and say, if you have any questions, let us know. You'll be hearing from our member experience team in the future. And then our suppliers have dedicated reps to these members in their geographical area as well. So it's not like they'll be joining and then, all right, you're on your own. But there's always people to ask any questions, feedback, reporting, anything you could think of.
And that's definitely a strength. You mentioned geographical area. So going with one of these larger contracts doesn't necessarily mean you're just going to have to call whatever national rep some other place in some other time zone. It's hopefully somebody in your local area that's easy for you to reach.
Yep, you will have a local rep, and oftentimes if there's a spend analysis required, then that rep will be involved from the very beginning. So they'll start to learn your business before you're even up and purchasing. That helps as well, so they can kind of get ahead of the game and start seeing purchasing trends after a few months of ordering to help, further that strategic savings process.
Now, sometimes the easiest way to get a sense of how this all works in practice is to go with a story. So I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't need to name any names. It can be sort of a nameless example. But can you share an example of a situation where Una was able to help one of your buy-side members either consolidate or rethink the way that they approach the contracts in a spend category that really then had a meaningful impact for them and for their company?
Yeah, I can think of one example that I believe it was last fall. We just had a gentleman sign up to our website. We did a discovery call. He said, "Hey, I'm new to this procurement seat. I've been in procurement, but I'm new to this company. We've got spend going all over the place. I just need some help to consolidate. And I don't have much reporting. People just swipe credit cards without telling anyone. It's kind of hard to gather." So what we did was just kind of say, okay, whatever you do have, just lump it all over to us. We'll go through everything. And, long story short, we ended up consolidating about 4 or 5 different suppliers they had on paper. And then they uncovered, an additional 4 to 5 of just people spending at their own leisure without really having to report or tell anyone. And we've kind of consolidated all of that into our Office Depot contract. We went through multiple implementation calls, setting up restrictions on, who can approve purchases. They're able to track all their spend now, who's buying, what location's buying, what product they're buying. And now that they've had some spend come in for the last few months, our Office Depot team is able to go in and kind of look at some buying trends and make suggestions about, so maybe if we didn't buy 3 different types of this product and we switched to one brand, we'll save an additional, 5% over the year.
It's funny, speaking as a former procurement professional, that idea that there's money all over the place or spending all over the place, as you said, I think that's probably like the ultimate procurement nightmare.
Yep.
But even to not have that reporting and that visibility, I mean, if this person wanted to try to do it, I don't know, the old-fashioned way on their own and bring it all under management, if you don't even have reporting in place, there's going to be so little that you can do. I'm sure that was an interesting set of projects to get to work through. And hopefully that person is now sleeping better at night, that there's no longer spending all over the place.
Yeah, it was certainly interesting. And that being able to get the reporting before we transition to a new account is just helpful for us to kind of show you some concrete savings up front. Now, that's not to say that that's a barrier from joining.
Sure.
Because there was a decent amount of spend that they didn't have access to. And now that it's flowing through the contract, we can better predict, what their annual spend is going to be, what their annual savings are going to be, and then just really honing in on all these certain items that they're buying and really centralizing it all.
Now, that's an example of where somebody was trying to get their spend under control, get some oversight. I'm assuming work with a GPO for the first time, but there are organizations out there that have worked with GPOs in the past or are currently working with another GPO. When you have those conversations, what tend to be the triggers or the conditions or the circumstances that would lead somebody to say, I've been with this GPO for a long time. Maybe it's time for me to make a change that might lead to them having a conversation with you or another member of your team. What are some of those, reasons to make a change that might cause somebody to reach out?
I would say lack of communication is a big one that I've seen recently. Our team at Una is a small but mighty team. I'm sure you'll hear some of my other colleagues say that. We're very responsive and we're very transparent with our members as well. From the beginning, we kind of know the areas that we can help in. We know relatively accurate timelines, and we kind of can tell based off a discovery call maybe where this might go. So we'll be very transparent with them if the member wants to move fast, if they want to just convert direct vendors, or if they want to look at new suppliers. We'll be able to kind of coach them through that. Or if they're saying, hey, we're just kind of feeling this out, we're looking to do this, in 4 or 5 months, then okay, here's what we can do. Let us know. We're not really in a position to, push them or anything like that. We can move at the pace they want to.
So it almost sounds like cultural alignment, in a sense, that you have to be able to work well with the team at your GPO if you're going to get all of the different benefits from that kind of an arrangement.
Yep, exactly. You hit the nail on the head there.
So you've been in this role for, is it about a year?
It was a year in February, yes. So
so we're just past. So you're 1+. When you think about all the things you've learned about procurement, about corporate spending, about supplier relationships and contracts, and even GPOs, are there any things that you think would surprise somebody who hasn't either worked in the space, meaning procurement, or hasn't worked with a GPO? Any sort of unique things that stand out to you in terms of what you've learned?
I would say just how much spend is going through on the back end. Some of the, non-sexy items that aren't going to be up front. They're just the tail spend, anything that's going back in your warehouse. Because some of these larger companies we work with, they say, oh, well, we have a little bit of spend in that category, and a little bit of spend to them is still $1 million plus. So looking at that from our shoes, like, hey, if we can help you save a quarter of that per year, that puts that back in your pocket, and then you could reinvest or do whatever you might need with those savings. But a lot of the back end stuff was really fascinating. And even if you don't have access to track it or any reporting or where your spend's going, those little dollars really add up over the course of a year plus, I would say.
Absolutely. All right, Clay, this is the big moment. This is where we bring you in on the Sourcing Hero tradition. Our listeners will already know this. I'm going to give you 2 questions. You can choose either one, and I promise there's no wrong answers. So your choices are either, what does the idea of a sourcing hero mean to you? Or if you want to go a little bit broader, what do you think heroism looks like in a business context?
I would say heroism in a business context, especially with our small team here of 10 to 12 at Una, is everyone's on the same page. We're all focused on the same goals, and that's to provide value, savings, and everything and more for our members. And we're all working together at Una. There's no real, you have to go through these different channels to pass along your ideas. It's, as our CEO, Anthony Clarby, says, may the best idea win. So we can all throw them out on the table, and then we're all really good at collaborating with our suppliers and our members, and just being that kind of cohesive unit is very beneficial, I would say.
So we can certainly say, for anybody that wants to learn more, Una as a company is on LinkedIn, there's the website. But if people are catching this conversation, meeting you here for the first time, and they'd like to reach out to you directly, what would be the best way for them to get in touch?
Yep, either LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is just Clay Kopp, and cost savings, supplier savings is all on my header there. So you'll be able to see that. A very easy way is just that una.com/signup. That will prompt you to fill out, just a couple pieces of information about your business, maybe what you're looking for supplier wise. That will lump you straight to our landing page on our Salesforce side of things. And then I handle all of those inbounds. So you'll be hearing from me in a matter of hours, if not days, from the time you sign up there. And then we can kind of figure out a time for a discovery call, and off to the races we go.
That sounds great. Well, Clay, thank you so much for, first of all, discovering and staying in this interesting world of procurement. Thank you for joining me to tell your story and share a little bit about your experiences. I'm glad we were able to have this conversation on the Sourcing Hero podcast so other people can hear it.
I am too, Kelly. I appreciate it. I had a great time, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sourcing Hero podcast. Join us again next time for more true stories of sourcing and business heroism performed by your colleagues and peers. Look for The Sourcing Hero wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to subscribe. Finally, don't forget, sourcing heroism is taking place all around us every day. Keep your eyes open and you're bound to see it. Until next time, I'm your host, Kelly Barner. Stay well and always remember that you can be a hero too.